Right, lives in Cockatoo Valley since 1991. Married to Graham, and they have 3 adult sons. She has volunteered at Meals on Wheels as a delivery driver since 1996 and is a life member, and is currently branch secretary and direct debit officer. She's also president of Rotary Club of Gawler Light, Trees for Life member, and other various volunteer activities. And the topic tonight is the history of Gawler Meals on Wheels, and I'll hand over to Marie Louise. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for having me here. Brian asked me to do this talk, I reckon it must be about 2 years ago now. I don't quite know why he asked me to do it. And even tonight, Ros Hine was telling me she's been involved with Meals on Wheels for 48 years, so much longer than I. I know Alan would have been a member of the Gawler Rotary Club when it all started, so there's people within your midst that know more than I do about Gawler Meals on Wheels. Having said that, I did spend some time combing through the historical stuff we have at the branch to put this presentation together tonight. I'll just say 2 more things before I start. I have no kind of official mandate to talk on behalf of Meals on Wheels. So this is a presentation of my views and my experience of the Meals on Wheels branch at Gawler. And also, when I was doing the research, I noticed that Ken Edwards, who was involved with Meals on Wheels for many years, did put together a history of the first 50 years. And it is on your history website. And some of you may have already kind of seen or heard of that presentation. So I do apologise. Some of the photos and stuff that I've got tonight you probably will have already seen as part of Ken's presentation. But it was quite a fascinating journey for me to go through some of the old historical events which in the records, which I'll share with you tonight. So there was first a meeting in November 1963 to discuss, and these are actually copied, we actually have all of the old minutes books at the branch. Not very well kept, they're stuffed in a filing cabinet, but they are there. So there was a meeting to discuss whether there was enough support to actually start a branch of Meals on Wheels in Gawler. So Meals on Wheels actually did start in South Australia by Miss Doris Taylor. The first branch was in Port Adelaide, and I think that started in the 1950s sometime. Gawler actually ended up being the 4th branch that started. But they said that 40 people attended the meeting to discuss whether they might like to start Meals on Wheels in Gawler. So the meeting was chaired by the local MP, Mr Clark, and the Mayor was there, Mr Gouger, and Miss Doris Taylor, the actual founder of Meals on Wheels, attended the meeting as well. So after everyone was introduced, there was an opportunity for people to express their support. And I apologise, you probably can't read a lot of these, but I understand the presentation will be available, so you'll be able to read the detail later. But basically, the local doctor spoke and said that he felt that there was need and that many of the elderly in Gawler weren't getting decent nutrition. Mrs Eastick spoke on behalf of the Red Cross, and then Miss Taylor spoke. Colonel Frith, who was from Meals on Wheels, talked about how a Meals on Wheels kitchen would actually work in the community. So they formed I guess the meeting decided there was enough support, so they formed what was called the Provisional Committee, and Bruce Eastick was part of that, and he actually ended up being the chair. So there were a few meetings of that committee, and then in February 1964, they extended invitations to both the Gawler and the Manipara Council seeking financial support to actually get the branch off the ground. It was quite delightful in the minutes where they talked about Doris Taylor hosting a Devonshire tea for ladies in Gawler to come and talk to them about Meals on Wheels and what volunteers at Meals on Wheels would do. They also sought volunteers from the community who'd like to come and actually help with Meals on Wheels. They sought a site which actually is the current site where the kitchen is down by the river, and that's actually on land leased from the council, so it's council land, and they got a local builder to actually build the kitchen. So if you think first meeting was in November 1963, and the branch actually opened on the 4th of July, quite an auspicious date, in 1964. So that's pretty quick work. Meals on Wheels, so Miss Doris Taylor actually appointed Mrs Lodge as a kitchen supervisor, which is a pretty key role in Meals on Wheels. If your kitchen supervisor is any good and your cooks aren't good, then your Meals on Wheels branch doesn't have a great reputation. I noticed in the minutes that the Devonshire tea raised £10, just over £10, which I guess was a start, but not really anywhere near enough to support the opening of the branch. Every meeting at this stage was attended by Miss Doris Taylor, and she, you see pictures of her in the Bunyip article. She was in a wheelchair. She had numerous health issues, and did an amazing job of starting Meals on Wheels and continuing to promote it and get new branch opens during her lifetime. So the cost of the building was actually £7,100 from the Meals on Wheels Building Fund. And this is actually something I learned. I didn't actually completely understand the relationship between the Gawler branch and the rest of Meals on Wheels. So ostensibly, Meals on Wheels is the incorporated body, and they have a building fund, and they gave money to build the building, along with the local councils, the Gawler Rotary Club and the Gawler Apex Club also provided some of the funds. But it says in the articles and in the minutes that there was no financial obligation to pay back that money to the building fund, but there was a moral obligation. So essentially, the idea was that if the branch, as they operated and raised surplus funds, they would pay money back to the Meals on Wheels building fund, which would allow other branches to be opened around the state. And essentially that's what happened. So legally, the branch is actually run and owned by Meals on Wheels South Australia. There's some pictures here from the grand opening. The town band played. It was interesting to see the service station that's on the empty block next to the branch now. I thought the outfits, the volunteer outfits, were delightful. I'm not sure when they disappeared. Ros, do you know when they disappeared?
No,
right.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, it's in the very early days, and Miss Doris Taylor was there as well. I should say that my first experience with Meals on Wheels was in Peterborough with my mum, going out and delivering Meals on Wheels as a child, and I really remember on school holidays going around with mum. Now, this is a video that I shot with Ian Sanders and Bruce Eastick, Dr. Bruce Eastick. For Rotary, we did a celebration of Bruce's 90th birthday, and I'm hoping this works.
Meals on Wheels. That's my first contact with Rotary in Gawler, actually. As much as I've been born and bred here, my mum was one of the early ladies to come down here and cook at Meals on Wheels, and and then of course from there on there's another life story attached to it. But Bruce, tell us a little bit more about the initial development of that.
Well, Doris Taylor, who was the creator of Meals on Wheels, had spoken to the council back in the early 60s, and they declined to have any part of it. And she then subsequently spoke to the Gawler Rotary Club, and as a result of that, the Rotary Club enticed the Mayor to call another meeting to discuss it, and I found myself the chairman of the committee that was formed and went ahead and built the Meals on Wheels kitchen on a little bit of council park lands, and it has proved once again a magnificent contribution to the aged people of the town. And one notable occasion associated with Meals on Wheels is the fact that the then Governor of South Australia, Earl Dean, came up to attend the delivery of the 3 millionth meal of Meals on Wheels to a participant up in Gawler East. I was present on that occasion, and it enhanced the fact that the Governor has played a considerable part in various aspects of Gawler's history. He was at the Gawler show responsible for launching the Second Glimpses of Gawler book, and his father was one of the members of the Port Adelaide Rotary Club that took part in the creation of the Gawler Rotary Club in 1954, and quite often attended Rotary meetings. When the building on Lindock Road, which provides for people wanting information about activities, recreation, and so forth. Sir Eric Neal was the Governor at that time, and I was the Mayor, and he attended. And as he got out of the car, he said, "So pleased to meet you again, Dr. Eastig." And I looked at him, and he said, "I was up at Gawler Rotary Club in 1954 when you were the guest speaker and one of the original members, and I was home on leave and attended with my father." Amazing how things fall into place. And I still see him from time to time. He's very interested in Gawler because his his father was the brother of the wife of the original Gawler gasworks owner. And that gasworks, which doesn't exist anymore as such, but the remains of the kilns and so forth is still present behind what was a racing stables on 7th Street, Gawler South.
So, as I said, the branch opened on the 4th of July 1964 with great fanfare. After that time, a permanent committee was established, and you see Bruce Eastig was the chair of that permanent committee. They were very big on celebrating each birthday, and they had dignitaries, and there's photos and the attendance lists and things like that. I know when I started volunteering for Meals on Wheels, we always had the AGM in this hall actually, and the catering by the aluminum ladies was spectacular. We don't do that anymore, which is a bit sad really. Again, the 3rd birthday party. Okay, and by the 7th anniversary, the branch actually had raised that £7,100, which is pretty good in 7 years, and paid it back plus a donation By that time, Doris Taylor had passed away. She passed away in May 1968, so not actually that long after she had actually helped form the branch in Gawler. In Meals on Wheels, I know becoming a life member, it varies with different organisations. With Meals on Wheels, it's 15 years of service, and so in 1979 there was the first bunch of life members, and Meals on Wheels does have a lot of really dedicated volunteers that volunteer for a long time. 25 years, and I actually had an article in the Australian Women's Weekly, but this photo, all of the volunteers shown in the photo are in their 80s, and I think the oldest one, Frida White, 87, is still working in the kitchen. And I've seen a lot of people actually go from basically volunteering, delivering or cooking meals to actually receiving them in quite short space of time. In 1996 they did a kitchen extension and upgrade, and that's the kitchen that we have today. Just as a bit of a side note, unfortunately a couple of years ago some vandals came and actually levered the commemorative plaque off the wall and stole it, which is a real shame. And of course these days the Meals on Wheels logo has changed as well, so we've got a nice plastic sign there, which is not quite the same as the beautiful brass plaque that was unveiled then. So in 2004, of course, was the 50 years of Meals on Wheels, and I'm just going to talk about some of the long-serving. These are some pictures from the branch, the honour boards of all of the life members, and there's quite a few names that you would recognise from Gawler. When I first started, I used to deliver with a lady called Muriel Stansborough, and she's up there as a many times life member. She was a lovely lady, and she taught me a lot about Gawler, but also a lot about Meals on Wheels. Pat Bray, who's 40 years service, and Ros, you were saying you had 48 years before ill health actually stopped you. So a huge number of volunteers that have volunteered for a long time. And the picture in the middle is on the 25th anniversary, at which date the branch had delivered over 300,000 meals to locals in the Gawler area. And all of those volunteers in the picture were all over 80 as well. So now, I guess I thought it'd be good to do a status of where we are now and how things have changed over the years. So Gawler still is what they call a fresh cook kitchen, so we have volunteers that come in every day and cook meals. The cooks get there at about 7 o'clock in the morning, so it's a long time for them. They have to have the meals ready by about 11:15, and they're normally working flat out all of that time. We haven't quite made our 1 million meals. We're over 800,000 meals delivered to the community, and we served just under 20,000 meals in 2020. When I started, there were 3 delivery routes. We now have 4 routes which cover the north, south east of Gawler. We go as far down south as Evanston Park out to Hillier. We also have people from outlying areas that come and pick up meals from the kitchen. In May 2000, the 30 millionth meal was served in Gawler, the 30 millionth meal that Meals on Wheels had done, and that was actually delivered to a man in Gawler. That's one of the things that Bruce talked about in the video the wooden plane. So what's changed in 57 years? There's plenty that's changed, but I guess the underlying premise of feeding a hot nutrition meal to the elderly in the community, and these days it's not always just the elderly. That hasn't changed. But the other important thing about Meals on Wheels is that it's a welfare check as well. I've historically had to call an ambulance for people. Just a few weeks ago, one of our clients was was not very well, and we ended up staying with her for nearly an hour until her family came. So it's not just delivering a meal, it's also about making sure that people are okay as well. And you hear the horrible stories of people passing away and not being found for some time. With Meals on Wheels, we have to make sure that, and it's always been the way with Meals on Wheels, that you have to make sure that you locate the resident, and if you can't, you have to report it, and someone actually goes out and physically checks on them, which is brilliant. So when I used to go with my mum, which was in the 1970s, this is what I remember, loading the big flasks of food into the boot of the car, and when you got to the person's place, you'd go in and you'd get their plate and essentially serve their meal onto the plate. And one of the most skillful things that you had to do was make sure that you portion controlled so that you had enough food for everyone on the route, or vice versa, where you didn't give them enough and you had a heap left over at the end. But this is how I remember serving the food with my mum. It's not quite that now. So what we have now is we have hot boxes and things to keep food hot, and both hot and cold. We also have frozen meals, which historically we used to prepare at the branch. The cooks would actually prepare extra food which would be frozen and would be emergency backup, or if people wanted extra. These days all of the either special diet or the frozen meals are prepared at the central kitchen in Adelaide. And one of the other key things that changed, you can see on the picture of the right, there's a pink lid and a yellow lid. In the past, there was just one meal. It's a hot meal, a soup and a dessert, and there was just one option prepared for the day. And about 5 years ago, I think, they introduced a choice. So now, it sounds like a really simple concept, but it means that every week we have to take out a menu for the client. They have to select which choice they want. It makes it more complicated for the kitchen because it's two completely separate meals. They don't even have the same vegetables. And so that's made it a lot more complex for both the kitchen and the deliverers to actually, but it means that people have a choice of what they have to eat. And the other thing that's changed is probably the amount of frozen meals has increased a lot as well. A lot of people get frozen meals on Fridays to have for the weekend, etc. We also cater for special diets as well, which is again something that historically wasn't happened. You would have just ate what you were given. Some of the other changes, and I've got some of the historical records and stuff I'll show you a picture of, but in the past all of the records and everything were handwritten, so all of the rosters and the volunteer records and everything were handwritten. That of course is all computer done centrally in the central office now. End of the round we would have several $100 cash that we collected from everyone, and of course those days it was much more cash-based society. But I must say I was always a little bit concerned about Muriel walking around Gawler with this bum bag with hundreds of dollars of cash in it. That's not done anymore. It's all, everything's done by direct debit, so we don't handle any of the cash anymore, which I think is actually a bit of a relief. Also, historically, you actually had to have a doctor's referral to get Meals on Wheels, so there was quite a process that people went through to be able to get Meals on Wheels. These days, with competition with things like Light and Easy, and you see them advertised on the TV where you can get meals delivered to your home, there's a bit of competition, and the need for a doctor's referral has been removed. So essentially now anyone can get Meals on Wheels. So that's quite a big change in how it all works, from that, very controlled who can actually receive it to pretty much anyone who would actually like it. As I mentioned previously, complex dietary needs, and the volunteers at the Gawler Meals on Wheels kitchen are amazing. So the kitchen is amazing at actually looking after everyone's needs and making sure that they get a meal that they actually like. The other thing that's changed in a huge way, not to say there wasn't food handling and safety in the past, but that's definitely a much bigger concern now than it was historically. And as I mentioned, in the Gawler branch we've gone from delivering from 3 routes to 4. When I started, it probably used to take us nearly 2 hours to deliver our route, because we used to have about 30 plus people on each route. So I think the number of meals delivered each day hasn't got a lot higher, but I think people are probably getting their meals hotter because they're actually getting them earlier by having the 4 routes. It does require more volunteers. So each delivery is 2 people, a driver and a deliverer, which is a bit of a safety thing as well for both the deliverers and the person that's receiving the meals. So this is what the volunteer rosters look like. Again, we've got these historical rosters. I don't think we've got all of them, but some of them in the branch, basically saying who was on which branch, which route for that particular day of the week. And of course, Meals on Wheels delivers 5 days a week, and not on public holidays either. And these days, we will get frozen meals for the public holidays and weekends if people want them. And this was the volunteer records. So there would have been someone at the branch that actually, the volunteer coordinator, that actually kept all of these records. These days we sign in a book and it's all tallied again in an electronic database. I just thought I'd finish off with just looking at Meals on Wheels on the whole. It's actually a pretty big concern these days. It was as high as 5,000 meals a day served in South Australia, and over 10,000 people received a meal. Meals on Wheels has just built a huge new kitchen and facility, fast chill freezing facility in Kent Town, and the revenue over $18 million. So it's a huge amount. It's a huge affair, and it also employs quite a lot of people now. So the volunteers' roles are essentially the cooking and the delivering, and then there's a whole bunch of paid people who that's their job, I guess, to work at Meals on Wheels. So Meals on Wheels, this is the new logo, although I think they might be changing it again, but more than just a meal. So essentially, it's not just feeding people, it's the welfare check and the sense of community that is brought about by people volunteering and looking after people within their community. That's all I have. And so I'll take any questions that Roz can answer for you.
Do I do the questions?
Sure. Has anyone got any questions that I won't guarantee I can answer, but I'll give it a go? Yes.
Not actually a question, but I know you can't name everyone who's served there, but I'd just like to mention my mother-in-law, Gloria Roden.
Yes.
Who said she's done about 27 years there.
Yep.
And just retired
Last
year.
Yeah. Yep.
She turns 96 in 5 weeks' time.
Yep.
Now she's a recipient of Meals on Wheels.
Yes.
Still living at home.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's the wonderful thing about it, is it does allow people to stay at home a lot longer than they otherwise would be able. There's a lovely lady that we deliver to who's in her 90s, and she thanks us every week and says that she wouldn't be at home if it wasn't for Meals on Wheels. And she gave us a bit of a scare last week, because normally every week she's sitting on a couch waiting for her dinner, and we got in the door last week, she wasn't there, and I did a bit of a panic, but she was okay. Yeah, it does, and as you say, she would have volunteered probably until she was in her mid-80s.
90s, I think.
Oh, okay, in her 90s,
Yeah.
and that does happen quite a lot, actually, more in the kitchen than in the delivering, but
She
yes.
did the soups.
Yes, yeah, yeah. no, it's great, and it's great for people who can actually, just that being in the kitchen is community and contact for them. So yes, very good. Yes, Alan.
The vehicles used for the actual delivery, are they reimbursed? The owners of those, are they reimbursed for their petrol and that?
Yes, so you have the option. So you can be reimbursed, or you can donate your reimbursement to the branch. So I actually didn't know what happened to the money if you said that you would donate it back. And then we found out last year that we've got $7,000 or $8,000 that is a result of people donating their reimbursement back. And that money is available for the branch to actually spend on the volunteers. So we're about to buy a defibrillator and a few other things that the volunteers want. So yes, if people want to be reimbursed, I think the route that I do, which is the Gawler South route, it's about 26 k's all up, but it's terrible fuel economy because you're always stopping and starting. But it does, you do rack up a few kilometres on the route. Yes?
I've got a couple of questions. How much is it for Meals on Wheels?
So I think at the moment it's $9.50, and as I said, it's a main course, a dessert and a soup. And at the moment you pay the flat amount whether you want the soup or sweets or not. But a lot of people get government support. For a lot of people it's part of the aged care package, and so a lot of people don't pay that full amount or any amount.
The other question was, you mentioned dietary needs up there. Is that where you've got a medical condition and you have to eat certain foods, or is it if I'm a vegan, I just want vegan food? Is it?
It's both. It's both. So if you, as I said previously, if you don't like Brussels sprouts, you just say you don't like Brussels sprouts and you won't get them. But there are other people who need like a smooth diet, or they have their meat minced up and things like that to actually. So there are medical requirements, and there's gluten-free, vegetarian. So there's a few. Some of them are true allergies, but others are more just about likes and dislikes, which I think is important. I mean, if you get served a meal and it's full of things you actually don't like, that's not going to be particularly appealing, is it? So that's quite important.
Okay. If you do it for Brian any time, make sure you get a bottle ready to go with it. Any more questions?
Thank you.
Okay, well thank you very much. We've finished for the evening basically, but I would like to obviously do a vote of thanks and ask Alan Harris to come out, say a few words, and also to present a little basket in appreciation. As long as that's all you drop, I don't mind.
Thank you. We've had some good speakers at our meetings, haven't we? And tonight is no exception. We've certainly appreciated what Mary and Louise has said to us. Being a fairly old boy, I suppose, I do remember Meals on Wheels starting, and I've been in Rotary for over 40 years, and I see Rotary chipped in £100 towards the venture in the beginning. They also chipped in for the swimming pool. Another great Rotary project was the cottage homes, and that was organised by Bruce Eastie, one of his projects, so Rotary has been involved there too. But apart from that, it's been a credit to those people who have volunteered. It's whether it's a cold morning or a hot day, they got up, got the job done. And it's those sort of people that we must honour and be proud of. And let's hope that and I'm sure it's in good hands, the organisation of Meals on Wheels may continue forever afterwards. It's a great job. It's not only a meal, as Mary Louise said, it's a contact, and that's important these days. So, thank you, Mary Louise, and just to show our real appreciation, I know you like fruit. Thank you. Thank you very much. Put your hands together.